Sir Richard, you are a founder of the Virgin Group, and I guess it used to just be like Virgin Airlines, but then you wanted to go into space and broaden the foundation of what you would call the enterprise. So just congratulations on that level of vision. And let me just ask you, why wasn't just airplanes enough for you?
Well, I'm inquisitive. I love learning. I never went to university, so I spent my life trying to learn about.
Don't tell me you're another college dropout, become billionaire.
I was a school dropout at 15. So.
This keeps going, you know. It's going to be tough for colleges to recruit people.
No, I think anyway, it's been a fun education, the sort of education of life, I suppose. And if you do drop out early, you need to find some bloody good people to hold your hand on the way, and that we've managed to do. So
you stayed curious. You just want to learn what you don't know.
Absolutely, and
so you're still a kid. That's what that is. That you have a kid in you.
I've been working since for 50 years, and I like to think I'm still Peter Pan, and I don't never want to grow up. But as to space, so I think most people in this room would love to go to space. I think most people in the world would love to go to space. And whilst governments were running space, they just weren't interested in you or I or members of the public going to space. So I finally got frustrated and thought, let's see if we can start, building a
Take
space.
matters into your own hands, is what you're saying.
Well, find some really good people to take matters into their hands.
But yeah, of course, I want to go into space. I just want to make sure there's enough budget to bring me back. All right.
We accept that.
That's in the business plan.
There have been a few people who've had a word about one-way tickets for you, but I promise you, no, we'll do our best to bring you.
So from your Virgin Airline group, it's Virgin Galactic, I guess, is what you've called it.
Yeah, it's Virgin Galactic, and as with a lot of these slightly off-the-wall ideas, you start on one path, which was, I wanted to go to space, and friends of mine wanted to go to space, my children wanted to go to space. So you start by trying to build spaceships to take people into space, and then you start realizing that maybe there's a lot more you can do with the space line. So, for instance, there's 3 billion people in the world who are not connected, and if you're not connected, you're going to be held back in this world. And we suddenly realized, we've got the perfect vehicle to put a whole array of satellites around the Earth, and we're putting up 750 satellites in a couple of years' time.
So just to be clear, this is an offshoot of what started as, I want to empower people to go to space, but we all read the early stories on that. You needed a whole lot of money to do that. So it was really not every man's sort of space plan. It was something for sort of the upper echelon to do for entertainment purposes, really.
I think, when airline travel started, wealthy people traveled the Atlantic. Now, a lot of people can afford to travel the Atlantic. The initial people who will pioneer space travel will be wealthy. Not as wealthy as they've had to be to go on a Russian spaceship at $50 million, but they'll still have to have money. And they will help us pioneer the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth spaceship. And they will help us pioneer orbital space flights. And they'll help us pioneer, hopefully, flights to Mars one day where we can we can jump in that water that they discovered today, rather than just read about it.
So just to be clear, this first foray into space is suborbital, right? You go up, you get above the atmosphere, get a good view of the night sky in broad daylight, because the atmosphere is not aglow. And then sometime after that, then you have orbital, like what the astronauts experience, and then beyond. So this is
exactly.
the tracking.
I think that to enable thousands of people to become astronauts, you need to, and to make it, and to do it at an affordable price, you need to make it suborbital. But that's still, you're still going to see as much as, almost identical to what you'll see in orbit, because you are actually, you're going very high, you're going, 30 or 40 miles into space. But then, we'll try to make orbital flight at an affordable price, and then just hopefully go on from there, and use the money that we're getting from the suborbital flights to fund the bigger adventures.
And just to get back to a point you raised a moment ago, so now you have this access to space, or planned access to space, and now your more sort of philanthropic sentiments can manifest with this idea of satellites providing internet to people where there are no wires that connect to their home, for example?
Yeah, I mean, one advantage that we have is the most effective, I think, networks will be low Earth orbit networks of satellites. Because we do air launch our rockets, we can take, if a rocket falls out of space, which it will do every 5 years on low Earth orbit and burn up, 48 hours notice, we can scramble one of our planes, take off, and launch another rocket into orbit, and then the satellites can go and replace the ones that have fallen out. So, up until now, you've had to wait a year for big, heavy rockets to, put your rockets into space, and I think this will be really quite an exciting breakthrough.
So this speaks to something fundamental, I think, to people who are on the frontier of science, technology, and exploration, as you are on all three, that you can be driven by one goal, and once you arrive on that precipice, you say, oh my gosh, I can see other things I didn't even imagine could be a solution before I ended up standing here. So
yeah, I mean, point-to-point travel, I think, is more likely to come about from Virgin Galactic than it is from any of our other competitors, because our spaceships are shaped as aeroplanes. We're launching from the air and moving that from putting people into space, but to putting people from one continent to another continent. It's a big step, but it's a doable step. Maybe in my lifetime, but definitely in my children's lifetime.
And just to be clear, point to point, it means you're in whatever city you are in the world, and you want to get to another city in the world. You launch, you go through the atmosphere, enter space, basically, come out of space, land, and you're there basically within 45 minutes between any 2 points on Earth. So. Except it took you 4 hours to get to that launch point in traffic.
Customs and immigration is the longest part of the journey.
So I did a little homework on you before I had before I can earn the right to sit next to you here. You're also into the oceans, and so what's up with the Virgin Unite Oceans? What is that?
Well, I'm what's called an oceanic elder, and we've set up.
I don't know what that means.
Well, it's a group of people who care about the oceans, who have maybe got a bit of clout to be able to, lobby governments and try to set about. I mean, our aim is to try to get from 3% of the world's oceans being protected to 30% by 2030, and.
Oceanic elders. It sounds like
good.
Something out of Homer's Odyssey, Here are the sirens, here are the mermaids, the oceanic elders, You must answer their oracle.
If we're going to give ourselves a title, we want it to be grand, and we thought it was a grand title.
It is a grand title.
But I think that the people on the elders are people like Prince Albert, James Cameron, Sylvia Earle, a number of well-respected scientists who know this area, and a number of people who know how to maybe get to a prime minister or get to a deputy minister and say, you should make, you should, in your time in office, create the biggest nature reserve in your oceans to protect it. It'll be in the interest of your fishermen outside this nature reserve. And we're having quite a lot of success. I mean, over the next week, there's going to be some very big announcements made. And today, I think New Zealand are making a very big announcement in the next hour or two. And
making an announcement about some regional waters.
Yeah, a very big area of New Zealand, and Britain did the Pitcairn Islands 6 months ago, and I think that if it wasn't for
the Pitcairn Islands, that's the famous island chain. What was that? Is it Captain Bligh or something?
Oh, that's right. They're absolutely right.
Okay.
God, you're not just
No,
up
no.
there. You're actually down here as well.
No, I just it dug something out of somewhere in my head, and I said, "What is that?"
No, but I think, and I think there'll be people in this audience too who can, lobby. Obviously the fish can't lobby on behalf of themselves. It needs people to lobby on their behalf, and
this audience is mature enough to know that you can have whatever idea you want that is sort of a good cause, but at the end of the day, there's got to be some sort of business model to sustain it. Otherwise, you have to go chasing after everything to keep it going. So for this protecting the oceans, has someone thought through what the greater value is down the line?
Yes, I mean, I think it has been well proven now that if you can create lots of nature reserves, protect the reef areas around, create nature reserves, that in the long term, we can keep the oceans for sustainable fishing to feed generations to come. If you continue to pillage the oceans as we've currently been doing, and we will not have enough fish left for them to replenish.
So that sounds like, okay, it sounds like a no-brainer, but it's not. I mean, there's still an effort to convince people of this. I have the naive thought that if you have an investor, a venture capitalist person, just a plain old business person, and you say, if you do this, you go broke. If you do this, you gain wealth. That's the end of the conversation. What is the challenge here? Is there anything we can help to communicate, to dissolve the disconnect between, I want to fish everything out of the ocean, and then I'll go broke in 1 year, or not? How do you make this happen? Strategic.
Well, I think you make it happen by sitting down. I mean, as you know, ministers change every 2 or 3 years. Sitting down with a new minister or a new prime minister who maybe has only got 2 or 3 years in office and say, what is it that President Bush is going to be remembered for? Not the Iraq War. He's going to be remembered for creating one of the biggest marine reserves in history off Hawaii. What is the Prime Minister of Britain going to be remembered for? He will actually be remembered for the Pitcairn Islands, creating that reserve more than anything else. The current President of New Zealand, and so on. So we need to appeal to to history, when they write.
Teddy Roosevelt, we think of with the national parks.
Exactly. I mean, there are these wonderful national parks on land that is now about 20% of America is national parks. I mean, Yellowstone Park. I mean, just astounding, but it could have been lost. So the same. We need to give the same attention to the oceans. I mean, there's some great news. I mean, like people like Jose Maria Figueres and others campaigned for the greater ocean, i.e. the 85% of the ocean that is not protected by anybody and is just being pillaged by everybody, campaigned to get governments to protect it. And they have now agreed to form a global body to start monitoring and protecting the greater ocean as well, so the last few years have been pretty good.
So so just to back up for a minute, just to reiterate, you went into this because you were curious and you have initiative and you're still a kid, but your capacity, your empowerment to be philanthropic or to be concerned really only came later. Right? Because you didn't have power to do anything about it when you first started this. So what message would you have for people? The reason why I'm asking this is, in my field, astrophysics, I had a professor in college who won the Nobel Prize for discovering this phenomenon called nuclear magnetic resonance. And it was a discovery of how the nucleus of an atom responds to radiation fields. Okay. He was interested in space and what atoms were doing in space. Later on, a medical technologist would see, wait a minute, if I make a cavity and I invoke that principle, I can measure the nuclei in the atoms of a human body. And out of this was born the magnetic resonance imager, arguably the most potent tool in the doctor's arsenal. Yet he didn't start his day saying, I want to contribute to medicine. He started it because he was curious about the universe. Same with the discovery of X-rays. So you're a living example of someone who starts out with a pure sort of vision statement, and out of it comes all the rest of this.
I think
This good for humanity.
you learn from. I mean, we were involved in starting an organization called the Elders, another use of the word elders, which were a group of wonderful men and women, Nelson Mandela and President Carter and Kofi Annan and Mary Robinson and so on, who go into conflict regions and try to resolve conflicts. From the experience of being involved with the Elders, and then Sylvia Earle and myself and some others thought let's do something similar for the oceans. So I think
in case people don't know, Sylvia Earle is one of the leading oceanographers of our times.
Yeah.
And so when she speaks of the ocean, just shut up and listen to what she says.
But it's if you're interested in life and you're in a position where you can, in the particular area that you've learnt about, make a small difference or a slightly bigger difference. It would be a sad life if you don't throw yourself at it, and it makes for a lot more fun to see what one can achieve.
So tell me about the business model for space. I mean, initially there's a lot of front-end investment. There's a famous quote from Elon Musk where he says, how do you make a small fortune in space? Start with a large fortune. It becomes a small fortune. So clearly there's a lot of sort of your own VC money, if you want to call it that. What is your hope for the business model to make this real?
Well, if I'm correct, the demand for people who want to become astronauts will way outweigh the supply of spaceships that we can build. And if that's the case, that should generate, that should get us a payback for a lot of money that we put into it. But more to the point, it should generate the cash to start doing really exciting things, and exciting things that that you're doing in space, and I mean, at the moment, NASA is doing the exciting things that are finding water on Mars and putting wonderful telescopes right into deep space. And in a sense, government should be doing that because it is enormous sums of money. But if we can actually do what the airline industry did and actually generate enough cash from people's love of being able to do something that they may have dreamt about all their life, and wanting to go out and see the Earth from space, then anything's possible. I mean, we dream big, and we want to make those dreams come to reality.
So that's how you turn a space program into a space industry, really.
Yeah, and I mean, satellites, for instance. I mean, it's not, a lot of good will come out of putting satellites into space, but it should be a business. I mean, we can reduce the price of putting satellites into space by 80%. We can reduce the price of putting people into space by 99%. I mean, so we can by bringing the price of all these things down dramatically, we can still make a buck or two out of it and achieve our dreams.
Can I make a suggestion that when you first get this going, that we all chip in and donate a round of seats to the politicians of the world, so they can see Earth from above in a way where there are no national boundaries?
Yeah, I would love to do that, and I would definitely donate seats to politicians who are at war with each other, and let them send them up there let them to have a.
And only bring them back down when they stop.
Well, as long as they sign the agreement. Anyway, we'll do it. How many people in this room would like to go to space one day?
Yeah, that's 100%.
Okay. I think we're.
There's like one person over there who said no, but other than that, we'll deal with them later. Yeah.
How are you? Nice to see you.
So every astronaut I've spoken to who has been to space, been to Earth orbit and to the moon, they have become changed. They're changed individuals. And it's inconceivable to them that they would ever hold up arms against someone. I mean, it's a different thing. So it's not just a ride to Disneyland. It's a ride to a cosmic perspective that maybe there's not enough of in this world. But you've got it. Lead us there. Sir Richard Branson, thank you for being on this panel, sir.